Hey, brothers and sisters, welcome to the next episode of the Bi-Weekly Grievance. I'm your host, Dan Arlin, and this week I have the honor and the privilege to bring a story to you that I believe is the first time it's ever been told from start to finish. This show is going to be about Robert C. Atkinson Jr., a legend in the Teamsters, and if he's not already, he will be. This man started working for UPS in 1988. And in early 2014 and beyond, he was run over by not only UPS, but his own local. He fought persistently for the last decade. And in November of this year, became victorious.
Getting stronger. This is how legends are made. Above it all, untouchable, a new animal. This is how legends are made. This is how legends are made. This is how legends are made. I got the lightning inside me. Oh, just you watch. This is how legends are made. I'm like a titan that's rising. Oh, just you watch.
What has UPS done to show that they respect the sacrifices that you all made working through that pandemic while they increased their profits by 250%? Nothing. For years we said if we only had leadership that would fight for us at the bargaining table. Well, I got news for you. We have that leadership now.
Yeah, we do.
The facts, dates, and events presented in this video are from the members' best recollection and may not be fully accurate. This video is intended for entertainment purposes only. Always consult with your local union about your rights and duties at your workplace. The opinions shared on this video are our own and do not necessarily represent my employer's positions, strategies, or opinions. All views shared are protected under the National Labor Relations Act.
Brothers and sisters, I am so phenomenally excited to tell this story. I think it's an incredibly important story for members to hear because of what we go through on a daily basis at UPS. I normally do my shows with maybe a few prompted notes and mostly off the cuff. But this story is so important. You are going to see me reading a lot of this story because it's that important that I get this right. This story is something that would break most people's thought process that is impossible for this to have happened. But yet it did. And it's incredibly important to the labor movement, specifically at UPS. I'm super proud to bring the story to you. Who is Rob Atkinson Jr.? Well, most of you may or may not know him. And for those that don't know him, he was the face of the UPS Teamster contract campaign over this last year. He had worked with Fred on a previous campaign against Hoffa. Fred knew of his story. And one day Sean called Rob at a job that he was holding down in between all this nonsense. Rob actually thought he was getting punked. He's like, yeah, okay, Sean O'Brien's calling me. Well, it turned out it really was Sean. Sean asked him if he would come work for him. Rob at the time said, I'm good where I am, but maybe we'll cross paths down the road. And when Fred and Sean teamed up with Teamster United and formed the Oz Slate, they decided to give it one more shot and reached out to Rob to become the face of the campaign at UPS because of his story. His story is compelling. His story put a black mark on UPS, and him being the being hired as the contract campaign coordinator for the IBT was a real slap in the face to UPS, and I love every second of it. This is UPS versus Robert C. Atkinson Jr., NLRB case number 06-C as in cat, A as in alpha, -143062. The case was based upon UPS violating Rob's Section 8A, 3, and 1 of the NLRA. What does that mean? Well, UPS and the Teamsters are governed underneath a law called the National Labor Relations Act. And the federal government has appointed the National Labor Relations Board, the NLRB, to uphold those laws and rights afforded to members. It is basically the rights of union members. It is uncanny, and this story today is going to be about Rob Atkinson because it is uncanny how similar Rob's story is with my story at UPS. And if you don't know my story, you can always check it out on the Roswell Hub. He covered both of my terminations. And when all said and done, I'll have a lot more to say about that. I can't speak a lot upon my case at the moment because UPS has been formally charged for what they did to me in March of 22. And it is heading to federal court through the NLRB in February of 2024. But I assure you when it's over, I'll have a lot more to say about my case. But back to Rob. Rob's story goes back nearly a decade. In 2013, Rob challenged his local for the principal officer position, which in his local is the secretary-treasurer, with a slate and narrowly lost. Rob's story goes back nearly a decade. In 2013, when Rob challenged his local for the principal officer position, which is secretary-treasurer in his local, and narrowly lost. Rob is also a vocal advocate for a vote no movement on the supplement for the 2013 contract for his region, which held up the national contract from being ratified, which of course ruffled feathers of his local and UPS. Rob's local, under old guard leadership, who was backed by Hoffa Jr., was a do-nothing, complacent local under the helm of Betty Rose Fisher, who was the secretary-treasurer principal officer of this small, nearly 700-member local, took extreme exception to Rob's efforts to organize members in group actions of no early starts, every member taking their lunch during their contracted hour, and not moving a single over 70 without union help. Let's just say that pissed them off. In December of 2013, the company started ramping up discipline against Rob. Discipline for things like double scanning and info notice. Now, we've all done that. Every one of us. Sometimes by accident, sometimes by on purpose. In this particular case, Rob scanned the delivery notice on the second attempt, but the old notice was still on the door, and he accidentally scanned the old label instead of the new one. And it came up as a duplicate scan. Then he was also giving so he was given a notice of term, Article 7 for that. And he also got an Article 7 termination, which is a working termination. Article 7 is different than a walk-off termination. So for a cardinal sin like lying, stealing, punching your fellow coworkers, you would be walked off property and not work. Under Article 7 termination, you continue work while it's adjudicated. So he was given a notice of termination for double scanning that notice. He was given another Article 7 termination for missing a dyad training. I mean, come on, how many of us have missed a dyad training? Okay, so they were making mountains out of molehills to try to go after Rob and make his life miserable. Rob did, however, and he owned ownership for this, did serve a 10-day suspension for damaging a gas pump. Apparently Rob, was fueling his truck and he went in to make a delivery to the gas station, came back out, forgot to retrieve the handle from the truck, and he pulled away and damaging the gas pump at the gas station. He served a 10-day suspension for that, but took ownership for it. They proceeded to do multiple OJS rides and safety rides and combination rides, and that's where these two Article 7 terms came. And those came in June of 2014. Off these OJS rides, they were never dealt with. Okay, these Article 7 terms sat dormant from June of 2014 until they were finally adjudicated in November of 14. That's absurd. In October of 2014, Rob made the mistake, and again, who all's done this? Back when we used to have to download Ed into our boards before we left the building. Now, his recollection was he attempted to download the dyad, but ultimately, he got on the road and figured out that he did not have his delivery records downloaded into his board, either because of an error in the board or because he simply forgot. I mean, how many of us have forgotten to do that? But absurdly, they gave him another Article 7 notice of termination. He called the building, tried to get a board brought out to him. They did bring one out to him, but they still put him on notice of term. November 14th, the first of the two Article 7 terminations went to panel, and he received a 53-day suspension. Kind of an odd number. Also, it meant that his union brethren agreed with the punishment. When you go to union panel, and I've been to a couple, they're typically, I'm sure it could be different around the country, so again, may not be verbatim, but something similar. There's typically 3 members of management, 3 members of union, and a federal arbitrator when it comes to discharge cases. In this particular case, it never went to the arbitrator. So his union brethren on that board upheld this 53-day suspension. It's unfortunate and odd considering how minor these discharges were. 53 days also seems very odd till I tell you it was 53 days till the next panel, to which it was in January of 2015. And if you remember, Article 7 termination for this one was for merely forgetting or whatever, downloading his work into his computer before he left the building. Something we've all done. This time, Rob goes to panel in January of 2015, and his union brethren helped the company uphold his termination, and they terminate him on the spot. So after 27 years of service, on the job since 1988, he was let go for not downloading the computer work onto his dyad. Instantly, the NLRB wasn't quite helpful in this case. I'm a little unclear on the details here. Rob is not able to speak right now in his case because it's still being adjudicated on the settlement or whatever, if UPS appeals. So a lot of this is my own work and conversations I've had with Rob over the last couple of years. But I believe that they deferred to the panel's ruling initially when I went to the NLRB. Rob talked over his options with his counsel, and they decided with less than a 2% success rate that they were going to try to overturn the NLRB ruling, and they took their fight to the courts. A judge in November 25th of 2016 ruled that UPS in fact did violate Rob's federally protected rights and his discharges were unlawful, but due to some post-discharge comments / behavior, basically he had some choice words for the management team that fired him for no good reason. The judge declared that it was unlawful, but the judge, in his ruling, due to the allegations, alleged actions by Rob, stopped short of giving Rob his job back and limited his ability for back pay. Rob continued his fight because what's right is right. And why is this important, guys? This is important because UPS every once in a while needs to be slapped upside the head and told that they can't just run over members, that they can't just treat us like garbage. Periodically, somebody has to put their foot down. Rob and his attorney appealed this decision to the U.S. Court of Appeals, Third Circuit in Philadelphia. On November 9, 2021, the court affirmed the appeal and remanded it back to the NLRB under new leadership for further proceedings, stating several inconsistencies and lack of fairness in Rob's case at the panel. For example, on top of these being super minor infractions that we've all done and never lost our jobs for, emails obtained through subpoenas showed his own principal officer, Betty Rose Fisher, was working against Rob and was even quoted in one saying that she couldn't stand Rob. These are emails with the company. She's his principal officer, charged with taking care of him and fighting for him on these ridiculously small, insignificant charges. Also, it was brought to light the 3 members of the union that sat on those panels for Rob were part of the negotiation team on the supplement to which he was pushing a vote no movement on. So they helped negotiate it. So to a degree, they were quite offended that Rob was shooting down, because usually when you're part of the negotiation team, you feel like you've put forward the best contract possible. So for have a member be vocal and fight for the members and say that this contract is not good enough and to push a vote no movement, and then you expect these 3 people who sat on those committees to be able to be impartial and actually vote in the best interest of the member, the court found this a little suspect. June 13th of 2022, the NLRB accepted the case back from the courts for further examination. Briefs were submitted by each side. Submitted briefs as well was the TDU and an Association for Union Democracy. And a 3-member panel started the process of reviewing his case. Now, I just saw Rob and talked to Rob recently, and he had no idea that they were this close to an adjudication of his case. And all of a sudden, unbeknownst to him, this 3-member committee, they found that the charges were not fair and regular and declined to defer to the union process, which means they've now taken the case over. So panel cases are sort of final, but if you appeal to the NLRB because you feel like you didn't get a fair shake and they determine that you didn't, they can overrule the panel system, which is what they did here. They found that the charges of June 20th and October 28th of 2014 were a violation due to his protected conservative activities. What that means is that the things that he was doing, like voting the vote, pushing the vote no movement on the supplement, and I think even in the national at the time, is part of his union rights. I mean, that's a clear violation. He has the right to voice his opinion on that and not have these heinous charges upheld because the people sitting on the thing were butthurt because he was pushing a vote no movement. That's crazy. It's absurd. So anyways, they reversed the November 25th, 2016 ruling by that previous judge that posted that the post-discharge conduct by Rob wouldn't allow him to return to work and would limit his back pay. So finally, November 21st, 2023, United Parcel Service versus Rob C. Atkinson, Jr., case number 06CA1430 was officially adjudicated. So the two questions set forth in front of this 3-member panel was whether to defer to the Joint Council panel, which upheld his discharge, and if UPS violated his Section 8 rights under the National Labor Relations Act. They refused to defer to the process because they, after further examination of the evidence, that he didn't get a fair shake. That there's no way those 3 members of the union who had ratified or worked towards ratification of that supplement could possibly be neutral and working in the best interest of the member. And the second was that the company, in fact, broke the law and violated his federally protected rights under Section 8 of the NLRA, and has ruled that Rob is to be reinstated to his job and ordered to pay full back pay, nearly a decade's worth. So what does that all mean? Well, UPS could possibly still appeal. That's a possibility. My understanding is they don't really want him back for obvious reasons. So there's a chance that they could negotiate him not coming back to work. But I don't know how that would work, because I know after 27 years on the job and 10 years sitting on the bench, if they don't want me walking back through those doors, they'd be offering me some serious money. And that's a decision that Rob, his attorney, and the company are going to have to sit down and figure out. And so there's still more to the story. I'm close with Rob. He feels very vindicated by this ruling. He is still kind of under a gag order. I mean, he could talk if he wanted to, but it's not really smart to. There's still, even though he's won his case, obviously UPS could appeal, similar to Rob appealing the decision that favored UPS. And also there's going to be some negotiations going on how to bring this to a resolution. I wish Rob the best of luck on that. But I guess what I'm trying to say here is you guys probably need to understand the importance of this. This guy, there's already a culture at UPS where, like myself, if you stand up for members' rights, if you fight for your union rights, your NLRA rights, your contract rights, you try to hold the company accountable, you become a target. And naysayers will say, well, he brought this on upon himself. He absolutely did. And I stand with him on that. Because somebody has to hold this company accountable. Things have gotten so bad in my 24 years at this company that, I don't know, less than 10 years ago, I'll say 8 years ago, I had enough of just being in the background. I started holding this company accountable. There's some great stories. If you ever want to hear those wild stories and you want to know the truth behind them, please contact me. I'll be happy to discuss them with you. But periodically, somebody has to stand up to this company and teach them a lesson. The only thing they understand is big checks. Okay? And the fact that Rob stands to get 10 years worth of back pay, along with whatever else, because then the NLRB can add in things like foreseeable financial harm, right? So I don't know what Rob's whole story was. I know at one point he was working another union job when Sean reached out to him and he thought he was being punked on the phone call. I know that when Sean and Fred ran, they hired him as the face of the campaign against UPS for obvious reasons. But it will be significant back pay as well as damages. And especially if they don't want it back, it's going to cost them some extra ching. And he deserves every penny of that. But when they have to write that check, that's when UPS reevaluates the way they do things. So if you don't think this case has anything to do with you, you couldn't be any more wrong. What's going to happen after this is there's going to be an evaluation by corporate. When it comes to stupid things like this, do we really want to push these people's buttons and find out whether the Teamster that accepts a 2-week suspension for no reason just to get back to work? Or are they somebody like Rob Atkinson or myself, Dan Arlin, who says, screw you, I'm not taking a suspension or termination for something I didn't do? And my case is headed to NLRB court. My case could have taken turns like Rob's. It hasn't. But our stories are very uncanny about our relationships with our local. Both of us ran against our local for office and narrowly lost, which, first of all, puts a scare into the company that imagine if Rob or myself were in office, we would actually hold them accountable. We would actually make them do their jobs. And some locals are not good at that. This doesn't make them bad people. They're just not the right people for the job. Although I have a few choice words for his local after what they did to him, because that goes way above and beyond anything that's even remotely allowed in this union. But these are all good things for us in the union, guys. This is stuff that's going to move the needle in our direction. You know, Rob's case is extreme. I thought my case was extreme, but Rob's case is even more extreme. I mean, almost a decade-long fight, and this man never gave up. Never gave up. Imagine the cojones on this guy. He said, I am not backing down. I'm taking this all the way. And mind you, the appeal rate on this success rate is less than 2%. And a decade later, he's victorious. Hell of a move. I applaud you, Rob. I'm glad to call you a friend. And I'm honored to tell your story on my show. You're a hell of a Teamster. I stand by you through thick and thin. Whatever you need, I'm here for you. I'm here for the Teamsters. I'm here for my local. This is a big deal, guys. So hats off to you, Rob. I wish you the best of luck in this victory, in settling this case with UPS, and finally having this over with. I can't imagine what you went through over the last 10 years. Waiting for this to be adjudicated, having the patience, right? Even if you had a job and you were never financially in the hurts and things were okay at home, having this hanging over your head for a decade is impressive, that you have handled yourself in the way you have. Standing up on that stage in Boston for the kickoff contract campaign and getting the crowd fired up, tipping your hat a little bit about what this company has done to you. It is unbelievable. Some other things that I just want to bring to light. There's a lot going on in the Teamsters right now. 5,000 rank and file Teamsters at the world's largest beer maker, Anheuser-Busch, are in contract negotiations for better wages and to keep up with inflation and better health care. Freight is moving the needle after years of neglect. T-Force secured better economics, protections against technology, better pension, healthcare, and safety. ABF has a June 30th deadline on a new contract covering 8,600 members and 137 locals, so keep your ear open for that. DHL is currently on strike at the air hubs, I believe. The Teamsters have an active campaign on that. In UPS news, approximately 35 newly organized members at the UPS hub in Louisville and in Chicago under locals 89 and 705 were fired or laid off because the company said, oh, those really should be management jobs anyways. Well, they were until they organized, so wrong. Sean O'Brien and Fred quickly stepped in and immediately took action and threatened ULP strikes starting this coming Monday, today. And the company's folded like a pretzel and returned those members back to work with back pay. Hell of a job, Sean and Fred. I believe Brother Atkinson is also responsible for, he's been heading the spear on some locals that are still having trouble with six-punch language. And I don't know all the details on that, other than I know after the contract was ratified, there was supposed to be some local level discussions between management and the union as far as how they were going to handle worker shortages during peak season, because obviously we have a responsibility to get people's packages to them. The new contract limits the ability for them to use outside people for personal vehicle deliveries. We expanded that right to inside UPS Teamsters to have first crack at that work and a longer time period that they can be used. But Rob's been, I think, working on that from what I hear. Also, a lot of us know Corey Levesque out of Local 251 in Rhode Island. I recently saw a post on Facebook about one of their brethren, a very active, supportive, happy, loving Teamster who would do anything for anybody, and recently has lost his home and all of his family's belongings to a house fire. This member is going through a lot right before the holidays. I asked Corey to send me a video in support of this member. They're looking for donations to help replace some of their belongings, as well as to give this family a good Christmas. They have done some collections, and a family friend has also started a GoFundMe page for this member. I will be making a donation. I'm asking you to make a donation. It's important. An injury to one is an injury to all. And no, there's no way we can help each and every member that has an issue. But Corey's a hell of a Teamster. He is on the steering committee for the TDU. He is, I believe, a steward and also possibly a field agent, which is similar to a business agent for Local 251. He's a solid Teamster, and here's that video. I hope you'll consider donating.
Thank you for the time, Danny. One of our members at UPS Metro Center, driver Edgar Ortiz, and his family lost their home at the end of November, around November 29th, that evening. Their triple-decker house that his kids grew up in went down in flames. And he lived there, his kids lived there, and his grandkids all lived there. So locally, we've been working to get them appropriate housing through the holidays and get them back on their feet. But the majority of their belongings have been lost in that fire, and we're going through whatever means we can to get cash in their hands. Obviously we're at UPS getting money from his coworkers and other members there. His daughter also set up a GoFundMe for the family to help them out as well. And any money that anybody can donate would be highly appreciated. Edgar comes out to every local event. He goes to the monthly meetings. He's heavily involved in the local. He always has a smile on his face, and he's willing to help out and support anybody, no matter what, whatever they have going on. So it's time for us to rally around him and show him the support that he deserves as well, and that love that he gives out every day on the shop floor. Every rally that we did during the contract campaign, he was there holding the sign. He's a fighter, but he's a happy fighter, and he's just a really good guy and with a great family, and they could really all use our help right now. So anybody watching the podcast, I encourage you to please donate to the GoFundMe. They need all the help that they could get right now. It's crazy enough going through a peak season and holidays when you work at UPS, but to lose your home to a fire as well, words can't describe, what they're going through right now.
Corey, thank you for that video. I hope members respond and help this brother out. I will be making a donation, and I hope that this member finds some peace through the holidays. He's lucky that he didn't lose anybody in this fire. Belongings can be replaced, but it's still a heck of a trauma to go through right before the holidays. Also, guys, contract enforcement is starting to happen now. most of the issues in the contract and it being put into place have been taken care of. Some locals are doing a good job of that. Some are not. There are some issues, but members, you have to understand that it's your responsibility to enforce the contract. Your local should be, but they also can't be in the barn every day and every minute. So it's important for you guys to know the changes in the contract, the things that we should be focusing on. Your locals have been sent information by the IBT to start a contract enforcement campaign. I believe those came out this last Friday. I will be hitting the gates. I will be helping the members of my local. I will be doing everything I can to help my members. I say my members because they're my brothers and sisters. I don't say that from a position of authority. They deserve to know what's going on, and I will be out there helping them out. Folks, I'm beyond ecstatic for Rob. I'm beyond ecstatic for the labor movement. I'm happy that the freight division is finally starting to get some movement in the right direction after being neglected for years. I best of luck to the Anheuser-Busch people and the alcohol beverage division of the Teamsters. Best of luck to DHL. And we have the Amazon Palmdale members still out on strike in California, been on strike for now. Well, as of Christmas, they will be out 6 months. They could use our support as well, too. I do have a little bit of a show coming up this week to help with that cause. But hats off to you, Rob. And thank you for stopping by the biweekly grievance. It's been a hell of a week. Lots of news, lots of action, and some vindication for the Teamsters, for sure. Thank you for stopping by the biweekly grievance. Solidarity forever, brothers and sisters.